Hey guys, so I recorded this video and then I recorded another video and then I went to edit them and then I realized that I had lost all of the audio and that it, for some reason, through the other program that I use to record these types of videos, it didn't capture. So I am going to retell the story and I apologize if the tone of this seems a little less emotional than you would think that it would, given the title of the video, which is the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. I know that this isn't going to be a super happy, fun story time, but the day that I'm uploading this is very pertinent to the topic, and so I felt like it was something that I needed to discuss with you guys and something that I wanted to kind of tell and talk about for the first time kind of ever on this big of a forum. So again, if I seem a little bit less emotional than you think I would, it's because I've kind of already did the emotional stuff just a little bit ago, and now I'm redoing it because the audio was lost. But for those of you who don't know, today is October 15th. It is Infant Loss Remembrance Day, and it is a day for people to find comfort in the fact that other people have unfortunately had to experience something that is very common, and that is miscarriage or loss of young infant life. I myself have had a miscarriage, and I talked about this in a video on my vlog channel last year at this time. That video was a little bit more emotional and about the situation that happened afterwards and how I felt and how it was very tough to go through. But I didn't actually kind of get into the story of what happened, and I didn't explain how I found out that I miscarried. And so I wanted to share that story with you guys because I do feel like it's a very big part of who I am as a person, and it gives you a little bit of insight into how I work and why I am the way with Boo that I am, and also to give you guys some hope that if you're facing something very difficult, that if I can do what I had to do, that I'm pretty sure that you guys can get through it. You can do things that you would be very surprised you can do when there is no other alternative. So at the time, it's really important. I know that it gets confused. I don't really talk about my past very often. I was married previously. I'm not anymore, and I haven't been pretty much for the entire duration of my YouTube career. And so I was married at the time. This was about 5 years ago. Boo was 2 years old, and I was married. So this was a planned pregnancy. Everything, we had calculated it all out. Everything, was going according to plan. And it's also important to know that before this all took place, I had had friends of mine that had miscarried before, and I was very cautious about announcing pregnancies. And I always get very nervous when people announce their pregnancies, like as soon as they pee on a stick, like I'm pregnant. Not because I don't think that you should celebrate that, but because going through a very public miscarriage is very hard. It sometimes can make it a lot harder. Some people find it easier. For me, I was always really nervous of that, and so I didn't announce that I was pregnant to anybody until we had gone to the doctor and we had seen a heartbeat. And then at that point, once we had kind of gotten the okay, like you guys are in the safe zone, which usually is between 8 and 10 weeks, then that's when we decided to tell everybody, thinking that, the chance that something happens at this point is very low. So I had had one pregnancy before, which was Boo, and everything had gone, really great, been a great pregnancy. And then this was my second pregnancy, and everything also seemed to be going great. So once we hit that safe point, we told everybody that we were expecting, and it was very joyous for us because I had another close relative that was pregnant at the same time, and she was a few months ahead of me, so we were relatively close. We were kind of doing the whole baby bump thing together, and it was great. And everything was going well, and so it comes time for us to have a baby shower for her. And I used to be a party planner, so I was really excited about it. I kind of jumped with both feet in, and I was planning this really great baby shower for her, and I was about 14 weeks pregnant when the party actually took place. So the night before the party, I went out. It was at a relative's house. And so we were going to stay the night at the relative's house. And the night before, we were going to get everything ready and move everything into place and set up all the decorations so that the next day, when we had the baby shower, it was like a brunch. It was pretty early in the morning. We didn't have to get up super early to get everything ready. So we could take a little bit of time and not have to stress out so much about that. So the night before we're out, and my mom comes to help as well. So it's, this relative and my mom and me, and Boo's with her dad. And so, because he was out, letting us like prepare for the baby shower and stuff, he was watching her. So we were doing all that, and I kept noticing that like the more it went on, the more my back started to hurt and the more just uncomfortable I felt. But having been 14 weeks pregnant and having a toddler already, I figured that was pretty normal. And I had back pain before being pregnant. And, I just thought, oh, this is just pregnancy doing it is. It wasn't anything too bad or anything too crazy. So I kind of ignored it and didn't really say anything. And then the more that we went about and the later it got at night, the more I started to realize that something just really didn't seem right. And so I decided that I was going to call it a day. It was already like, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And, we were going to have to get up a little bit early to get everything ready the next day. So I decided to call it a night, and I was getting ready to tell everybody good night. And I went to go to the bathroom, and I noticed like a lot of blood, like a concerning amount. And anytime you're pregnant and you see blood, it makes you nervous. But this was like definitely cause for alarm. And so I freaked out, and I called my mom in, and I said, Mom, like, what's wrong? Something's happening. And she tried to just say, maybe it's just from you helping set up, like maybe you took it too hard. Like, I'm sure everything's fine. Call your OB and talk to him. And so I did. I called my OB, and he kind of said the same thing my mom said. Erin, you've already had a healthy pregnancy. We've already seen a heartbeat. Statistically, the chance that anything is wrong is like 0.1%. Like, don't worry about it. But if you're concerned and you can't wait till Monday, go ahead and go to the emergency room and just have everything checked out. So me kind of being the person that I am and having anxiety, I knew that even if nothing was wrong at the time, like what happens if this was the sign that something was going wrong, and if I didn't get it fixed, that something like that I couldn't fix later happened. And so I said, no, it's really important. I think that we need to go to the ER. So my mom and myself and my husband at the time, we hopped in the car and we went to the emergency room kind of out in the middle of this like nowhere place where we were. And so we go into the emergency room, and they, ask me how far along I am, and I tell them, I think I'm like 14 weeks. And he said, when was the last checkup you had? And I said it was at, a little over 7 weeks, and we saw a healthy heartbeat, and we have a sonogram picture and everything. And they said, okay, they drew blood. They came back and said, well, your blood shows that your hormone levels are normal. So, no really cause for alarm there. And so then I started to feel like maybe something was okay. And, then it was kind of like the joke was like, well, maybe you're just having twins, and like this is like your body and, not knowing it or whatever. People try to think of all kinds of crazy things to make you feel better in a stressful situation. And so they said, well, let's just go take you in and have a sonogram done just to check everything out. So we go in for the sonogram, and I'm by myself. And if you have ever been pregnant or you've ever seen someone getting a sonogram, it's like very joyous. Like there's like there's monitors above you, and they're like, oh, look at the heartbeat, and they're very like chatty and whatever. And maybe it's because it was 11 o'clock or something at night and it was late, or maybe it was the situation, but this definitely was not this way. And in fact, when I had asked the girl, like, what do you see? A heartbeat? Do you see anything? She just kept saying, ma'am, I'm not allowed to tell you anything. I'm not allowed to make any readings. I just have to take the pictures. And like, if you do this as a job, like, it's very clear. I'm not I don't look at sonograms all day, but like I have been in the small number I have know like when you can see a heartbeat and see what things like indicate that things are kind of okay. Like I know enough to do that. And if I had seen someone that was worried that she was losing her baby, and I would try to calm her down, And she was definitely not doing that. And so that was my second really big thing that, like, okay, so I need to, like, prepare myself for there to be really bad news incoming. And so then when the doctor came in after that, he said, you know, how far did you measure when you were at the OB the last time? And I said it was like 7 weeks, 3 days. And then he came back and he was like, oh, well, we're only measuring you at like 8 weeks, which means that, like, on top of the fact that there's no heartbeat, like, there hasn't been a heartbeat for a few weeks. But it's very common in pregnant women that if you miscarry, because your body can still recognize that you're pregnant, you continue making hormones and your body still tricks you into thinking that you're pregnant because it doesn't know that you're not technically anymore. And so then once it starts figuring out, oh, hey, things are different, that's when you start showing signs of having a miscarriage. And that's what happened to me. And so as soon as the doctor came in and said, you know, there's no baby. I mean, there was a baby, but it wasn't, like, alive. I kind of lost it, and I just started crying uncontrollably. And you go through a lot of things when you find out. For me personally, obviously, I was devastated. I felt confused. I felt dumb for not knowing for, like, you know, weeks that I wasn't actually pregnant. I felt really stupid. I felt guilty. I felt like it was my fault that something happened and I was the only person, obviously, that was supposed to be taking care of the baby, and I did something wrong and I didn't do a good job and it was my fault. I felt depressed. There were a lot of things that I felt, and they were all bad feelings, and I just kind of lost it. And so once, you know, they kind of said, you know, well, you have to make these decisions, you know, you have to determine whether you're just going to go home and kind of just miscarry the baby at home, or are you going to go and have a D&C done? And there are a lot of risks, and there are different reasons for doing either one of those. And so they said, you know, we won't make that decision for you, but you'll need to talk to your OB about that. And so they kind of just sent us on our way. Well, remember, guys, I was setting up for a baby shower the next morning. And so we get home and it kind of, this reality hits us at, like, oh shit, like, we have this baby shower tomorrow. And my mom was like, well, obviously you're not going to go. And I kind of just was like, well, why? Like, no amount of me being home alone and crying is going to bring the baby back. And I could go home and be alone and cry while my family is, like, celebrating this other baby that's going to be born, and be bummed that I've planned this baby shower for weeks on top of everything else and miss it. Or I can deal with a potentially uncomfortable few hours and I just have to put on a brave face, and at least I don't get to miss it. At least I don't have to deal with people being like, oh, lame, she didn't show up, right? Which I'm sure people would have understood after the fact, but at the time, it would have been really disappointing to the people that were there. And we couldn't have just said Erin can't come because she had a miscarriage, because then that's like a super downer for a baby shower. And so, you know, either way, people were going to have to lie. And I figured, well, I might as well go lie and at least not have to miss it on top of all the other devastating crap I was already dealing with. And so I went to bed that night, and I think I cried like the whole night. I don't think I slept at all. And I got up the next day, and I got showered, and I got ready. And I don't think that anything could have, like, prepared me emotionally for what it was going to be like. On one hand, it was awful and devastating. And on the other hand, I felt like I was on autopilot, and I felt like I just wasn't even in the moment, because people would come up to me and they would touch my belly and they would be like, oh, you look so good pregnant, or like, have you thought about baby names yet, or like, oh, does Boo realize she's gonna be a big sister? And they would ask all these questions indicating that I was still pregnant, and I wasn't. Like, I was pregnant. It was just weird. Like, I have the baby, but it's not alive, and it's not gonna be alive, and I'm not gonna have a baby anymore. And I've had about 10 hours to process this information, and now I'm like face to face with having to lie about the fact that this isn't what's happening anymore. And it was very, I don't even know, it was a very out of body thing. And I was so good about people, oh, your baby belly, whatever. And I was like, yeah, how's work? Did you just move? Oh, good. Yeah, I saw your new car outside. That's really nice. And I would just flip it. The second that they would bring the baby up, I would just turn it on something else and change the subject. And my mom had told me, if you're not up for this, just tell me that you don't feel well and we'll leave. And she kept coming up to me like, are you feeling okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And I put on this, I'm not even gonna lie and say like I put on a brave face. I don't even think I was there. I don't even think I was like in the moment. I just felt empty. It is the most empty feeling I've ever felt in my life, like having to lie to all of these people, but at least I was there. Like at least I wasn't home depressed, I guess. And the worst part about it is that then they made me take a picture with the relative who was pregnant also. And they were like, oh, the 2 girls are pregnant. Oh, look at them. And I was like, yeah. And then like now we have this really awkward picture. I don't know. It was like super weird. But so after the whole thing was over, I remember being like, I'm going to go just not be alive for a while. And I was so, I don't even know I don't know how to describe the word. I wasn't tired, like physically tired. I wasn't emotionally tired. I wanted to not exist for a while. I wanted to not see sad when I looked at my daughter. I wanted to not be angry when I looked at myself. I wanted to not look around the room and everything reminded me of the fact that I lost my baby. I didn't have time to process anything, and I didn't want to process it. I didn't want to deal with it. And we still had all these awful things that I had to decide about. Was I going to miscarry the baby at home and potentially deal with that by myself one day? Or was I going to go have a D&C done, which was a scary thing? Like, I didn't want to do that. And so I remember I went upstairs at the house where we were, and I laid down, and I think I just turned off. I don't remember it. I just remember closing my eyes and just feeling nothing. And I woke up a few hours later, and then the female relative was like, I can't believe you did that. I feel so bad. And not even like guilting me, but like you're a crazy person. Why would you do that? And it was like, I don't know. Like, I was going to be sad one way or the other. I might as well just not add more to the top of it. And then that's when I had to wake up, and I had to like deal with all of these questions, and I had to, what was I going to do? And then I had to tell everybody, I had to call family and friends and say, we're not, and it's not like I like had like a phone chain where I was like calling everybody, but like I did have some support networks that I needed to rely on, and I had to have people who would come. I was in a lot of physical pain. I had to have people come help me with my daughter while I was out and scheduling the D&C, and I had to go have this procedure done, which is incredibly terrible. It's terrifying and awful at the same time, and like they don't knock you out, but they give you enough sedative to where you don't remember, except for I remember the sounds. I remember how cold the room was. I remember the things that they said to me, and I remember the doctor like commenting and asked me how I was holding up, and I was like, I'm okay, and he was like, you're not okay, and I was like, no, I'm fine. But I was like just turned off. I just shut down, and I came out of it, and I continued to shut down for a while. I was, all those emotions that I dealt with, I dealt with for a really long time, because when you have a miscarriage, and especially in my situation, I think for me personally, it was hard because I already had a baby. And so the minute that I found out I was pregnant, and even more so when I got comfortable and I was told everything was fine, I started making memories with this baby. I started thinking about what it was like to hold the baby again, because I had had a baby before, how it was going to be when he or she learned to walk, and what, Boo was going to be like as a big sister. And I started making all of these memories in my head and looking forward to all of these different things. And it was like those memories just got ripped away. It was like the person existed and the baby existed, but I had no proof. I had no memory. I had no photos. I have no nothing. And when you have a miscarriage at this time, and you go in and you have a D&C, they send the baby off for testing. And it's awful. It just sounds awful to say it out loud. And I don't think I've ever actually said it, but I know it's not a baby, but it was my baby. And in my head it was a baby. And I didn't get, when someone you love dies, you get a funeral. I didn't get that. I didn't get pictures. I didn't get anything. I just got sad. And that's what I got. And I was sad for a really long time. And the whole experience of how I had to go through it, and having to cover it up, and deal with people saying things that are so heart-wrenching, and feel like they're just tearing at you and they're not even doing it on purpose. It's a very strange thing to have to go through. But I didn't break, and I didn't crumble, and I didn't let it get me down. And I probably should have. I probably should have sorted my brain out before I had to deal with all of that, because it took a really long time later to get right with what I had been through. And I cried a lot for a long time. Afterwards, when I was, going through my separation and stuff, I was still dealing with the sadness of having lost the baby. And when you have a D&C done, they do genetic testing to do a couple things to see if you miscarried because there's something wrong with me genetically. Is there something wrong with the baby genetically? To try to figure out why, so that they can prevent a miscarriage from happening again. And what they determined in my case was that there was nothing wrong with the baby genetically. It was just, I was a fraction of people that just happened to have miscarriages. There's a couple of things that could have happened, but they don't really know, and there's not a way to tell. And they also do, when they do the genetic testing, they can determine the gender of the baby. And so when I was still dealing with all of this later, my therapist recommended to me that I find out the gender of the baby, which I previously did not want to know, and give the baby a name, and give the baby an identity, and say goodbye to the baby like I would have said goodbye to a sibling or a family member or a friend that passes away, so that I can close that chapter and I can get some type of something out of it, so that I can move on and I can, be somewhat normal again. And so I did, and it really did help me a lot. That actually really did. And now I can reference, when I'm talking, or I can tell people about the story, and I can reference the baby by their name. I don't want to talk about it in this video because it is very personal to me. And I don't want to, disclose anything, also out of respect for my family members that don't know. Some people didn't want to know, and I want to respect that as well in case they happen to ever watch this video. I don't want to give them any information that they are uncomfortable knowing. So, it happened that way, and it has really shaped the way that I think about things now. I'm 30. I was much younger. I was 23 when Boo was born, and I was 25 when I was pregnant with this other baby. And I'm 30 now. And the older that I get, especially with the other health issues that I have, with me being high risk for cancer, it is very risky the older that I get to have another baby. And I may never have another baby again. And if that happens, then I'm okay with that. But that just means that Boo's the only baby that I'll ever have. And I then have to treat it as if this is my one opportunity. And I don't want her to get older and wish that I had snuggled with her more, or spent time with her more, or done things with her. Because I think sometimes people think, well, I'm busy now, but I have 2 kids and I have twice the opportunities to do these things, and I don't have that luxury. And I don't know if I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. Not right now. But if that's the only baby that I ever have, and I'm okay with that, I just want to make sure that I take advantage of every opportunity I have before those opportunities don't exist anymore. And I want people to understand that it is not something that you just get over. It's very weird for me to say that I have one child, because I did have these memories, and I do have another part of me that's not here anymore, but it's also very uncomfortable. And I don't think a lot of people are open to the idea of talking about miscarriages. It makes them very uncomfortable. It's kind of taboo, and I don't know why. It's very common. Lots of people have it. So I don't know. I just wanted to share my story because I feel like I've never told it before, kind of in the whole scenario of what happened. And I told a fellow YouTuber friend of mine this entire story a few weeks back, and they were just kind of like, dude, that's like deep. Like, that's crazy. But it is very much my personality, and I don't want to risk missing out on things because something bad happened. And so it was awful, and it was hard, and it's still the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. I would never wish that on anybody. I still think about that baby a lot, especially every now and then. Especially now, I actually found out that I was miscarrying on National Infant Loss Remembrance Day. So it's been 5 years exactly since this happened. And it does get easier to deal with. The sadness never goes away. The what ifs never go away. But you do learn to come to peace with the fact that that's just what you've been dealt with. And that's it. So again, I hope that you guys got something out of this video, whether you learned more about me, whether it gave you hope if you are going through that or have recently gone through it, or if you ever go through it in the future, to know that you can go on and be still very happy. And I had a lot of people try to tell me, oh, you'll have another one. And it was like, I didn't know if I ever wanted to risk going through that again. I don't know that my little glittery unicorn heart could take that. And it's okay if you don't. You can still be very happy. I'm very happy. I don't not like my life. But, it is, you always have that what if, and I think that's very normal. So I hope you guys not enjoy this video, but I hope that it was at least informative for you. And I promise the next video will be much happier, and I will see you all very soon.